The alien woman was 8 feet tall, bleeding silver, and growling at anything that moved. So naturally, Jake offered her a granola bar. He wasn't entirely sure why that had been his first instinct. Maybe it was because every emergency manual he'd ever skimmed said something about keeping injured people conscious. Maybe it was because humans had a long, proud history of doing incredibly stupid things out of kindness. Or maybe it was because the alternative was leaving a giant, wounded extraterrestrial inside a crushed escape pod drifting through an asteroid field, and Jake wasn't built for that kind of guilt. His salvage ship, the Rust Bucket, creaked as it adjusted its magnetic clamps around the damaged pod. Warning lights flickered amber across the cockpit. Reminder, the ship's AI said in its pleasantly indifferent voice. Life form inside pod matches 17 threat profiles. Statistical survival recommendation, depart immediately. Jake squinted through the cracked viewport at the alien again. Yeah, he muttered, pulling on his pressure gloves. But she looks like she needs soup. You do not possess soup. Metaphorical soup. He cycled the airlock before his survival instincts could finish forming a counterargument. Up close, the pod looked worse, half melted, clawed open from the inside like something had tried to escape in a hurry. The alien herself was slumped against the curved metal, her skin a deep bronze threaded with faint glowing lines that pulsed slowly, like embers under glass. Thick white hair spilled over one shoulder, and even injured, she radiated the kind of presence that made the primitive part of Jake's brain whisper, apex predator. Her eyes snapped open the moment he stepped inside. Bright gold. Focused. Very, very aware. She let out a low sound that vibrated through his boots. Jake froze. Hi, he said carefully. Great news. I come in peace. Mediocre ship, but excellent customer service. Her gaze dropped to the granola bar in his hand. Nutrient offering? She rasped. Chocolate chip, he said. The universal language. There was a long pause. Then, surprisingly gently for someone with hands the size of engine plates, she took it. She sniffed it once, bit into it, and her glowing lines brightened slightly. Acceptable, she decided. Jake released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Up close, he could see the wound along her side, an ugly tear that leaked shimmering fluid onto the pod floor. All right, he said, forcing confidence he absolutely did not feel. Let's get you patched up before you redecorate my asteroid with your insides. She studied him as he unpacked a med kit. You are human. Last I checked. You approached without negotiation. You looked busy bleeding. A faint rumble left her chest. It took Jake a second to realize she was laughing. You are either brave, she said, or profoundly foolish. Little column A, little column B. He worked quickly, spraying sealant over the wound. The med scanner beeped in cautious approval. Her muscles relaxed. Your species is physically small, she observed. Wow. Straight for the ego. Yet you risked yourself? Jake shrugged. Where I'm from, helping someone who's hurt isn't considered heroic. It's considered Tuesday. She went very still at that. Almost thoughtful. Once stabilized, he guided her toward the airlock. She had to duck, twice, to avoid decapitating herself on the frame. The moment she stepped onto the Rust Bucket, the AI chimed again. Warning, mass threshold exceeded. Recommend fewer giant passengers. Rude, Jake said. He cleared the narrow path toward the med bunk, trying not to notice how she made his already tiny ship feel like a child's toy. After a few minutes, she sat upright, strength returning with unsettling speed. I am called Vara, she said. Of the Threxian high clans. Jake blinked. Even a backwater salvager like him recognized that name. Threxians had a reputation for being wealthy, long-lived, and extremely not to be messed with. Jake Morales, he replied. Owner, operator, and unpaid janitor of this fine vessel. She inclined her head slightly. You have done me significant service, Jake Morales. Well, if you feel like leaving a 5-star review. Instead of answering, she reached to her belt and removed a small, glowing tablet no bigger than his palm. Symbols drifted across its surface like liquid light. A token of gratitude, she said, offering it. Jake's brain immediately converted it into resale value. Alien tech meant credits. Possibly a lot of credits. He accepted it without hesitation. The screen brightened. A single icon pulsed. Accept formal gratitude. He tapped it. Because who reads alien legal documents? The tablet chimed softly. Vara exhaled, long and satisfied. Her shoulders lowered, tension draining from her massive frame. A deep, almost feline purr rolled through the room. Jake frowned. Everything okay? Excellent, she said warmly. The bonding is now recognized. He smiled automatically. Then he stopped. The what? Our bond, she repeated. Jake stared at the tablet like it might explode. Define bond. In my culture, she explained calmly, to rescue a mature female and formally accept her gratitude constitutes intentional life bond declaration. Jake made a noise somewhere between a cough and a scream. I'm sorry, life? She nodded. The agreement includes shared residence, emotional compatibility sessions, ritual meals, and eventual clan introduction. He blinked rapidly. Wait. Back up. I thought this was a gift. It is, she said. I am not given lightly. That is, extremely flattering and also mildly terrifying. He jabbed at the tablet. Okay, where's the cancel button? There is no cancel button. Undo? Bonding is permanent once acknowledged. Jake swayed. You're telling me I just accidentally proposed? More accurately, she said, you declared long-term romantic intent with legal recognition across 12-star systems. He stared at her. She smiled, slow, confident, utterly unbothered. You will find the arrangement highly rewarding. I was trying to be polite. And I find that deeply attractive. The AI chimed. Contract uploaded to shipped records. Document contains 417 clauses. Jake whispered. I'm going to pass out. Vara tilted her head, studying him with clear amusement. Are humans always this expressive? Only when we accidentally sign up for alien marriage. It is not marriage, she corrected. Not yet. He made a strangled sound. She rose, ducking the ceiling again, and rested one massive hand briefly on his shoulder. The touch was careful, almost gentle. You acted with courage, Jake Morales. Few approach a wounded Threxian without calculation. I didn't calculate, he groaned. I panicked and brought snacks. Precisely, she said, golden eyes softening. You helped because it was your nature. Jake looked up at her, heart still racing. Somewhere under the panic was a strange realization. She didn't look predatory. She looked pleased. Comforted. Chosen. Which was confusing, because he was pretty sure he was the one who'd just been chosen. He sank into the pilot's chair. So, he said weakly, hypothetically, what happens now? Vara folded her arms, tail. He hadn't noticed the tail before, curling lazily behind her. Now, she said, we begin learning each other. Jake covered his face. He had rescued an alien. Apparently, he had also just agreed to date her. Jake did not sleep. Technically, his body powered down for about 20 minutes at some point, but it was the kind of shallow, panicked half-sleep usually reserved for people who realized they'd sent a risky message and couldn't unsend it. Unfortunately, he hadn't sent a message. He had signed an interstellar romantic contract. He sat hunched in the pilot's chair at 3 a.m. ship time, squinting at the glowing tablet like if he stared hard enough, reality might glitch and reboot. Ship, he whispered. Search contract for termination clause. Searching, the AI replied pleasantly. A long pause. Result none. Suspension? None. Temporary emotional confusion exemption? None. Jake scrolled faster. The document seemed endless. Clause 12. Shared habitat encouraged for emotional synchronization. Clause 48. partners shall participate in weekly emotional closeness evaluations. Clause 103. Snuggle proximity expectations. See Appendix C. Jake stopped breathing. Appendix C was 90 pages. Why? He whispered. Are aliens so thorough? Behind him, something shifted. He froze. A deep, steady purring filled the ship. Not mechanical. Organic. Vara had fallen asleep on the reinforced med bunk, which was now visibly bending under her weight, one arm hanging off the side, silver bandages glowing faintly where the med sealant worked. Even unconscious, she radiated the calm confidence of someone who had never once worried about fitting into a space. Jake, meanwhile, felt like he'd been stuffed into someone else's life. He tried to focus on the tablet again. There had to be a loophole. Humans invented loopholes. It was practically our greatest evolutionary achievement after thumbs. The screen suddenly reorganized itself. Welcome, bonded partner. Cohabitation recommended within 12 standard hours. Jake looked slowly around his ship. No, he said aloud. Absolutely not. This is a studio apartment with thrusters. As if summoned by his panic, Vara's eyes opened. Golden. Alert instantly. Jake, she said, voice rough with sleep. Why are you awake? Why am I awake? He repeated. Probably because I accidentally entered a legally binding alien romance and now my ship is recommending cohabitation like it's a lifestyle upgrade. She stretched, and several joints popped with alarming force. It is not merely recommended, she corrected gently. It is optimal. For who? For the bond. He dragged a hand down his face. You know what's optimal for me. Breathing normally again. She studied him for a moment, then, to his surprise, her mouth curved upward. You are amusing when distressed. I'm not amusing, he said. I'm spiraling. Vara stood, immediately forced to hunch to avoid the ceiling. This vessel is intimate, she observed diplomatically. It's small, he translated. It encourages closeness. It encourages concussions. She stepped toward the storage wall and began moving things. Effortlessly. His engine parts. His supply crates. The toolbox he couldn't lift alone. What are you doing? He demanded. Creating harmony. You can't just redecorate. Shared habitat requires spatial cooperation. Within minutes, the ship looked alarmingly different. Efficient. Organized. Wrong. She picked up a tangled cable nest. This produced anxiety, she said. That produced character. She paused, then gave him a look that clearly said humans were baffling creatures. A loud crunch interrupted them. Jake turned. She had opened a premium nutrient pack, the expensive kind he saved for emergencies, and was eating it like popcorn. That costs 30 credits. You will require strength, she said calmly. I require financial stability. She tilted her head. I possess significant resources. Jake narrowed his eyes. How significant? I own 3 moons. He sat down. Hard. Of course you do. Silence stretched. Then the tablet chimed again. First emotional closeness evaluation ready. A small orb floated out of the device, projecting a soft blue light. Jake pointed at it. No. Vara looked delighted. Yes. The orb spoke in a warm, neutral tone. Bonded partners, please respond honestly. Jake crossed his arms. I already hate this. Question 1. When your partner is threatened, is your instinct to protect, retaliate, or flee? Jake sighed. Protect. Vara's purr deepened. The orb glowed brighter. Positive response. Question 2. Preferred shared rest temperature? I don't know. Room temperature? Vara leaned closer. I run warm, she offered helpfully. Jake swallowed. Not helpful. Question 3. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate your urge to remain in physical proximity. He hesitated too long. The orb chimed. Hesitation detected. Marking subject as emotionally repressed but promising. Vara smiled proudly. You will open up. I was opened yesterday, he protested. Look where that got me. Desperate, he grabbed the tablet again. There has to be a legal out. What if I accepted under medical stress? The contract flashed. Heroic distress strengthens validity. He stared upward. Universe, why? Vara stepped closer, her expression softer now. You truly did not understand what you accepted. That is becoming painfully clear. She considered him for a long moment. In my culture, bonds are not traps. They are chosen honors. Well, I chose by accident. Yet you chose kindness on purpose. That shut him up. The ship hummed quietly around them. For a second, the panic loosened its grip. Then Vara said very casually, You should prepare yourself. His stomach dropped. For what? Tomorrow, you will meet my daughter. He blinked. You have a daughter? Several. The word echoed in his skull. Several, he repeated faintly. Yes. The eldest is 206. Jake grabbed the back of the chair to steady himself. I can't even keep a houseplant alive. They will want to evaluate you. Evaluate me? Like produce? They are thorough, she said approvingly. He stared at her. You're telling me that less than 24 hours after rescuing you, I'm meeting your multiple adult alien children. As what, exactly? She smiled, confident, radiant, utterly certain. As my chosen partner. Jake choked on absolutely nothing. Somewhere deep in his brain, survival instincts were lighting up like fireworks. But beneath the terror was another feeling. A strange, warming one. Because when she looked at him, it wasn't with ownership. It was with unmistakable interest. And that might have been the most dangerous part of all. Jake had barely slept when the Threxian clan vessel came into view. It was impossible to miss. The ship was enormous, far bigger than anything he'd ever piloted, with towering spires of metal that gleamed in the asteroid's sunlight. Its hull was polished to a mirror finish, which meant anyone looking at it could see their reflection and possibly wonder how such a terrifyingly large vessel could even function. For a moment, Jake considered turning around and pretending he'd discovered a new kind of asteroid to salvage, but Vara's voice in his mind, and now on the comms, stopped him. You must come aboard, she said, calm as ever. So your bond may be formally recognized by my clan. Jake swallowed hard. His rust bucket felt like a sardine can beside this floating fortress. He remembered her casual warning. Some humans are fragile. Do not underestimate them. He didn't like the sound of fragile, when it might also apply to him. He docked clumsily, hitting 2 control panels, tripping over a crate of spare cables, and somehow managing to jolt the docking clamps. Vara raised a single brow, golden eyes glimmering with amusement. You are adequately competent, she commented. Jake muttered something about sarcasm being the only thing keeping him sane. Inside the clan vessel, everything was massive. Corridors stretched wider than a human shuttle bay, and ceilings arched high enough to make him feel like an insect. He could hear soft hums beneath the walls, possibly engines, possibly some kind of warning system, and there were displays everywhere showing tactical information he would never understand. Vara's children were waiting. He froze. The first one stepped forward, a tall, broad-shouldered Threxian male with a stare that could probably crush a human rib cage if he weren't careful. The second was a wiry female, eyes sharp and calculating, her hands casually resting on a staff taller than Jake himself. Behind them, 2 more watched him curiously, one sniffing the air as if trying to determine his nutritional value. Vara leaned against the wall. They are assessing you. Stay calm. You are already intriguing. Jake's mouth opened. Intriguing? That's a good thing, right? Mostly, she said, with a faint smile. The eldest son stepped closer. Human, he said, his voice low and measured. Why did you risk your life to rescue my mother? Jake's mind raced. Vending machine incident? Vara tilted her head. What? I fought a vending machine yesterday. I lost. But it shows I understand struggle. That counts for something, right? The son blinked. Then, surprisingly, he nodded once. Interesting. The daughter, not impressed, crossed her arms. Do humans always exaggerate? Jake scratched his head. Pretty much. Our species' greatest pastime is exaggeration. Followed closely by staring awkwardly. A snort from behind him. He realized the other two children were laughing. One whispered, "He is amusing." Then, to make matters worse, the legendary ex-partner of Vara arrived. He didn't have to announce himself. The room immediately shifted. His armor gleamed, and his expression radiated command. Jake immediately assumed his death was imminent. Instead, the general raised a hand and said calmly, "You rescued her?" "Yes," Jake said, squeaking. "Good," the general replied. "She was bored." "I approve." Jake blinked. "Wait, what?" Vara's golden eyes sparkled. "Humans find courage fascinating. You acted without calculation. That is, rare and pleasing." Jake's internal monologue briefly crashed. Courage? Pleasing? He'd barely survived docking. Then, the clan elder called everyone to attention. Bonded partners must participate in the recognition ceremony. Tomorrow. All witnesses present. Jake felt his stomach flip. Tomorrow? That's tomorrow? I just rescued someone, and now I'm meeting her terrifying family for a ceremony of what exactly? Vara stepped closer. For acknowledgement. For mutual respect. For validation of our bond. Jake's knees went weak. The day wore on. Vara led him through a series of formalities, introductions to various clan members, demonstration of survival skills, and awkwardly polite small talk. Jake tried his best to follow, but the sheer size and confidence of the aliens made him feel like he had accidentally wandered into a predator convention in a tuxedo he didn't own. Finally, Vara pulled him aside into a private chamber. The room was more intimate, still huge compared to human standards, but it gave him a moment to breathe. "You are overwhelmed," she said gently. "You're telling me. I almost apologized to a metal console for stepping on it." Vara chuckled, a low, melodic sound. "You do not understand my species fully. Many fear us. Few act without calculation. You acted from instinct and kindness. That is rare." Jake's panic gave way to a strange warmth. "So, that's a compliment?" She stepped closer, just enough to make him acutely aware of how much larger she was. "It is. You have shown bravery, compassion, humor. All valuable traits." He swallowed. Humor? Compassion? Bravery? Traits humans valued in heroes? All at once, he realized he didn't just want to survive her family's scrutiny. He wanted to impress her. And more than that, he wanted to understand her. The elder's voice echoed in the hall. "Prepare for tomorrow." Vara touched his arm lightly. "You may be afraid of the ceremony. But fear is not weakness. Courage is doing what must be done despite it." Jake nodded, almost sincerely. "Yeah, courage. Right." And for the first time, he wasn't just thinking about loopholes or escape routes. He was thinking about what it meant to be chosen. About what it meant to choose. He still had no idea how he was going to survive meeting the rest of her family. But for the first time, he realized he might actually want to try. Tomorrow, he would face giants, warlords, and legendary warriors. Today, he learned that even humans could find a way to matter among the stars. And Vara's golden eyes reminded him, softly, that sometimes the most terrifying things could also be the most rewarding. Jake groaned. Somewhere deep inside, a small, heroic part of him knew he was going to need a very strong breakfast. Because surviving an alien clan, and impressing them, would require more than granola bars. And yet, against all odds, he didn't feel entirely unprepared. Because he wasn't entirely alone. Jake sat on the edge of the ceremonial platform, staring at the massive hall that stretched impossibly high above him. The clan had assembled in waves of polished armor, glittering robes, and an assortment of appendages that made him feel both insignificant and slightly nauseous. Every eye in the room was on him. Humans were a curiosity, and he had already earned a reputation as the human who rescued Vara. That reputation, he suspected, was simultaneously dangerous and embarrassing. He rubbed his face. "Okay, Brain," he muttered. "We're going to survive this. Just like surviving docking a 3-kilometer-long warship, but slightly scarier." Vara approached, her golden eyes calm and warm, contrasting with the intimidating stares of her clan. Her hand brushed his shoulder lightly, a gesture that, for someone his size, was both reassuring and terrifyingly intimate. She didn't need to hold him. Her presence was enough to make him feel supported. "You are nervous," she observed. "You think?" he said dryly. "I'm about to meet 100 of your family members who could probably snap me in half if I sneeze wrong." She tilted her head, a slow, feline gesture. "They are not here to harm you. They are here to witness the bond, and to approve it. Courage and honesty are what matter." Jake swallowed. Courage and honesty? He had plenty of courage, sure. He just rescued a deadly alien woman. But honesty had led him to explain the vending machine incident to her children, and he wasn't entirely sure that had gone over well. The elder stepped forward. Massive and imposing, with armor that gleamed like liquid metal. "Jake Morales," he said, voice booming through the chamber. "You have rescued Vara of the Threxian High Clans. You have accepted the bond without calculation or expectation. Today, we ask you, do you reaffirm this bond?" Jake's throat went dry. This was it. The one moment where he could undo everything, if only he dared. The loophole he'd been searching for all these weeks suddenly felt like a fragile thread. One word, one refusal, and he could vanish back to his tiny salvage ship and pretend this had never happened. But then he looked at Vara. Not at her towering figure, not at her alien elegance, but at the way she watched him now, patient, confident, yet just a little vulnerable. The vulnerability was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he could see it. She had chosen him, in spite of everything. He realized, in that heartbeat, that humans often define bravery not by strength or size, but by the willingness to face what scared them most. "Yeah," he said finally, voice steady, if a little shaky. "I reaffirm." A hush fell across the chamber. Then, slowly, the clan began to nod, murmur, and eventually cheer in ways that made him wonder if their concept of celebration involved seismic activity. Vara's tail flicked in amusement, her eyes sparkling. "You are dangerously courageous," she said softly. "And remarkably human." Jake exhaled, a laugh escaping him despite the pounding of his heart. "Remarkably human, huh? That sounds impressive, I guess." The elder approached, placing a massive hand on Jake's shoulder. "Humans are rare. You have proven that even small beings can possess the qualities of the greatest warriors. Your bravery is noted and honored." Jake felt the heat rise to his face. "Thanks. I think." Vara leaned closer, her presence overwhelming yet comforting. "You have done more than survive. You have chosen to engage with our world honestly. That is why you matter." Jake swallowed hard, realizing he'd been holding his breath. "You make it sound easy," he said, though he knew nothing about this had been easy. She smiled, a slow, radiant curve that sent a strange warmth through him. "It is not easy. But it is worth it." He glanced around the hall. The clan members who had initially terrified him now seemed like observers to a story unfolding, rather than predators ready to judge him. Somehow, in the chaos of alien culture, he had found a foothold. Then, the tablet on his wrist chimed. He glanced at it warily. "Congratulations. You have unlocked extended bond benefits." Jake froze. "Extended, what now?" Vara's golden eyes twinkled. "We will review them together." He groaned. Somehow, he knew that meant more absurd evaluations, more close proximity activities, and definitely more opportunities to be both terrified and enchanted. And yet, he didn't feel the panic he had when he first accepted the bond. He had survived docking, surviving a clan, surviving awkward emotional evaluations, and now he was choosing to stay. Choosing, not out of obligation, but because the bond, accidental or not, had become meaningful. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine what it might be like to live in this enormous, alien, terrifying, utterly fascinating world. To wake up knowing that the woman he had rescued, and who had rescued him from his own fear, was part of his life. He looked at Vara again. So, breakfast first? Or bonding protocol first? She laughed, a low melodic sound that made him grin despite himself. Both, she said. This is only the beginning. Jake groaned again, but this time it was mixed with a strange, thrilling excitement. Because he had started the day thinking he had simply rescued an alien. Now, he was building a life with one. And somehow, he thought, against every rational instinct and terrified calculation, that was exactly where he wanted to be. The hall hummed around him, alive with alien energy and the murmurs of the clan. Jake adjusted his jacket, straightened his spine, and took a deep breath. Okay, he muttered. Let's see what being bonded actually looks like. Vara extended a hand, golden eyes locked with his, full of patience, warmth, and just enough mischief to remind him that nothing about this would be simple. Jake smiled, a real, unguarded human smile, and took it. Because in a universe full of monsters, warlords, and impossible expectations, he had found someone who saw him. And he had chosen, entirely of his own reckless, human heart, to stay. The tablet chimed again. Jake groaned. Some things never changed. But for once, he didn't mind.